ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै गुरवे नमः। We're starting with a new text. This text is called Nītiśatakaṃ, but the way we write it in English, ta and ta, both takara and takara, both are written in the transliteration with T. So there is a confusion in its pronunciation. So it is not Shatakam, it is Shatakam. When you say Shatakam, then it is 6. When you say Shatakam, then it is 100. Though technically it is not that he has stopped at the 100th shloka. Bhartrhari ji continues and he gives more than 100. So it is Shatakam. And this is a part of a trilogy. So he has written 3 Shatakam, 3 sets of hundreds. The first is called Shrungara Shatakam. The second is called the Nītiśatakaṃ. And the third is called Vairagya Shatakam. Who wrote it? It is Bhartrhari who wrote. And the moment you hear the word Bhartrhari, there are so many opinions. So many opinions because who is this Bhartrhari? When was he and what period does he belong to? Now when you start digging in to the Hindu literature, there is so much of discrepancy or confusion. When you look in the Sringeri Matha for Adi Shankaracharya ji, they say he is around about 600 or 700 BCE. There are at least about 20 plus Shankara Digvijaya biographical account on Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji. And we find the discrepancy from 5th or 7th century BCE to 700 century BCE to 5th century AD. So it is almost about 1,000 plus years of discrepancy? Almost 1,000 plus. Now, when you look into the dating system as proposed by Max Muller, who is supposed to have, you know, given a lot of thought in the Hindu anthropology and Indic studies. So he says that the entire Vedic literature, the oldest mantra of the Vedic literature, is probably about 7 to 8,000 years old. And this was not even, the origin was not even from the Indian subcontinent, that it was the origin from the Aryan, and they brought it into India. If you go into that logic, the Aryan invasion theory, there is another confusion added in. So within, to decide, to decipher when exactly, because Bhartrhari was a Kshatriya, that much is a known fact from multiple references. There is also a reference that he is the brother of Vikramaditya, older brother of Vikramaditya. Now, this older brother of Vikramaditya, there are two Vikramadityas. One from the Maurya and the other from the Gupta. Vikramaditya Maurya, Vikramaditya Gupta. Now, whoever or whatever, because if you go into that stream of analysis, because there are so many granthas, so many texts and works that have been attributed to Bhartrhari, even on a literature front, literary front, in grammar, there is a huge contribution of Bhartrhari. Because he was the older brother and he was a statesman himself, though the fame was for his younger brother, which is Vikramaditya. And this Bhartrhari, maybe like many of the academicians and people that study the language, the style, and the presentation, and the examples taken, and so they do a lot of analysis. They say he must have been about 5th century BCE or earlier than that, not after that. So definitely, if we take Adi Shankaracharya ji as the 4th or 5th century AD and him as 5th century BCE, then definitely he is much before than Adi Shankaracharya ji. It is said that he was living the life. Name it, and he had it, including all the vices. And in during that particular time, his wisdom of experience, he put it forth in the beautiful aspect called Sringara Shataka. Sringara Shataka, how to handle one's own Kama Vasana. In the Chaturvida Purushartha, there is Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So the Kama aspect, how to understand it, how to handle it, he mentions it in the Sringara Shataka. Of these Purusharthas, the Dharma and Artha, he takes a keen interest, because the story says that, and he himself mentions in the nītiśatakaṃ, and the second shloka, we'll go through that when we come there. So the story goes that he was in love with a beautiful lady. There was a great tapasvi that was passing through there. This is covered even in Upanishad Ganga. To understand the Kama Vasana, it was very hilariously presented in Upanishad Ganga. Do you know what is Upanishad Ganga? So that Upanishad Ganga series, in the very beginning, initial series, you will find this story. So that tapasvi that was passing through their kingdom came to Bhartrhari and he gave him a fruit. And he said, whoever has consumes this fruit, they will have immortality. So he presents this to his beloved. And this, who he loved, did not like him, but liked some other minister. So she went and gave this to her beloved. And he in turn gave it to his beloved. She gave it to her, and she was married, and she gave it to her, uh, love of her heart, and he gave it to his wife, and she in turn gave it back to Bhartrhari, saying, "This is a very powerful fruit." So it completes a complete circle, and it reaches him, and he is so disgusted and disappointed that he says, enough is enough. Then he focuses on the Dharma and Artha and how one should handle it. Because Kama is already described in the Sringara Shataka. The Dharma and Artha he focuses in the nītiśatakaṃ. And in the Vairagya Shataka, which should be the next logical sequence, because Vairagya is towards moksha. Now, Vairagya is not something which can be talked or discussed without it aimed at moksha. So with the Vairagya Shataka, he is focusing on the fourth Purushartha, which is the moksha Purushartha. And his life itself, it's almost like these three Shatakas are a running commentary on his own life and experiences. Like they say in Hindi, aankho dekha hal. And what has been seen and what has been experienced as is. Many boil down to agree to come to a point of understanding and say, he was a great poet. When you read, you will definitely appreciate that he was a great poet. But apart from being a great poet, I believe he was also a great Brahmavadi. Somebody who understood Vedanta, not just understand Vedanta, but also experience that which is the final culmination of Vedantic pointers, which is to understand Brahma Tattva as my own Chaitanya Swarupa. And we will get those glimpses as we go through the nītiśatakaṃ. Sringara Shataka, I purposefully, if Sringara Shataka has to be spoken, then we have to switch roles. You can come onto the stage and explain it better with your experience than me trying to explain it. So I said, okay, let's get past that. So we will focus on the nītiśatakaṃ. And in this nītiśatakaṃ, what is the focus? As I earlier just said, the focus is the Dharma and Artha. Though Artha is not that very keenly focused, his focus is mostly on Dharma. There are many words in our Sanskrit vocabulary and literature which I personally feel cannot be justified in translating it into English? उसका भाव ठीक जमता नहीं है. The entire depth of that word doesn't get communicated in any which way. So I said, what does dharma mean? How do you explain dharma? I said, dharma. I'll change the accent and say still the same word. Now, what does dharma mean? There are various aspects of dharma. From the highest standpoint, dharma means the very nature of that vastu. Aryate anena yah sah. That by which that vastu gets defined. Fire, how would you define? Heat and light. Fire. The fire anywhere is going to be hot. I cannot say, oh, back in India the fire was ekdam. In here, the fire is not that great. Because we hear people say, oh, back in India, fruits taste so good. Here, the fruits taste tasteless. Back in India, the vegetables have a flavor to it. Here, they don't have a flavor to it. So I said, oh, back in India, fire is really hot. Here, fire is not that hot. Then it is not fire. You may be adjusting yourself with the distance so that you benefit maximum. As close as you go, as hot it gets. As far as you go, it gets little low. But the fire's nature is to be heat and light. Remove that nature of that particular vastu. That vastu does not remain to be that vastu anymore. Remove that heat and light, it is no more fire. You subtract that particular nature from that vastu, it's no more that vastu. All the ornaments that you wear made of gold. Gold is the swarupa or the dharma of that vastu. Do you like the shape and form? Yes. Latest fashion. ठीक है. You keep the name and form. I'll take only the gold part. Can the Nam and Rupa, shape and form, be retained without the substance called gold? So that when you remove, it does not remain to be that vastu anymore. That nature is called its dharma, highest standpoint. Dharma can also be defined in our day-to-day life of interactions as it becomes tricky. Let me think. All that which the actions that we perform, which are the right actions. Now, right actions will yield phala. And that phala which is going to give us sukha. The right actions yield punya, and that punya gives us sukha. Right actions yield us punya, and the punya gives us sukha, which is what we are aiming at. There is no punya karma. Karma is right or wrong. And what decides this right or wrong? We have Shastra Vihita Karma. Shastra prescribes. And based on that, Now, when you go into the Shastra called physics, there is a chapter called electricity. Now, when you're learning about electricity, you will have to go through certain experiments to understand this electricity. One is called static electricity, the other is called, what is it called? Dynamic kinetic. Okay. Dynamic electricity. ठीक है. So when you read about it, they say when you are handling electricity, make sure there is no dampness. Do's and don'ts, vidhi vidhana. Make sure there is no dampness. Then there is, they said, if at all you have to work, make sure that your hands are having some kind of protective, those uh, insulated material. When you are standing, make sure that you are not grounded, but you are on a surface which is like wood, which does not transmit that electricity. And if somebody goes, all this is, and goes, touches it, what do you get? Whatever you get is called a divine shocking experience. And there are do's and don'ts. So when the scripture gives us the whole, when I say scripture again, what do I mean? There is our Veda. Rik, Yajus, Sama, Atharva, Veda. Then we have Smriti, Itihasa, Purana. All of these talk about the Dharma. Dharma meaning what is the right thing to do, what is not the right thing to do. Depending on what age group that you belong to, it has to be age appropriate. What kind of job that you are into also defines what responsibility that you have. Whether you are in the phase, the age group is brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa, age group. Then responsibilities as a husband, as a wife, as a child, as a family, then responsibilities. And the do's and don'ts according to each one's definition for that particular moment. Now, when I'm sitting on this podium, what is my definition? What is my role? I have to teach. So that becomes the definition. In another hour or so, I will be sitting in the car and I will be driver. Now, when you are driving the car, what else are you called? You are called a driver. So that particular moment decides what kind of responsibility, and that moment takes into account all these different parameters that I have just enumerated and much more. That is why in the Vedic literature you will find the Purva Kanda or the Purva Mimamsa is elaborate, quite extensive. The Upanishad, the cream of it, is very small in comparison to the Purva Kanda or the Purva Mimamsa, Karma Kanda. So all that Karma Kanda are Vihita Karma. It is not just telling you about what are the do's, it is also telling you about the don'ts. So when we adhere to that and do the right actions lead to Punya Phala, and the Punya Phala gives us Sukha. That can be called as in Vyavahara as dharmic way of life. Second, Dharma also means that which builds Astha. Astha. Shraddha. Attitude. Anybody gone to Vrindavan here? I took a group from here long time ago. And there were a lot of children too. And I had explained, telling them that Vrindavan, this is a place 5,000 plus years ago. There was Bhagavan Krishna who had walked these fields, who had walked these streets, who had lived here in Mathura, Vrindavan, Govardhan. This is where all his mischief and masti was. So they were super excited, pumped. And we got into the narrow streets of Vrindavan and everybody gets off. And the first thing they see is like lot of Varaha Avtara. You understand Varaha Avtara? Lot of Varaha Avtara. And then they step out and again step back into the bus and they say, "You, this place is dirty." It takes a lot of Shraddha to go past beyond the narrowness and dirt to find the association that this was the very place where Bhagavan Krishna had played, had put his foot, set his foot on. That which builds that astha. Like when you go to the Himalayas, when you see Gangaji, there is that sanctity that is built in. The attitude with which you go. So one is the dharma, which is in the day-to-day interaction of the karma, that is vihita karma as prescribed by the scriptures, which yields punya, which gives us sukha. That is dharmic way of life. The second one is the attitude with which we interact. Third, dharma can also be stated as, which also is included as an aspect of the scriptural study and pointers. The scripture points as this dharma to be the values. Now, if you look at, there's a lot of description about karma. In that, the astha, that which shraddha that has to be developed, that which is sprinkled elaborately. In that, you will find some nuggets of these values and wisdom, which comes in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which comes in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which gets described in the Daiva Asura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. So there are so many pointers that are being given, which are values, and these values are that which remains constant, which help us function in the field of interaction, which it acts like a compass, which gives us a sense of direction. That also is called dharma. So dharma and artha means that which gives us sense of meaningfulness. And what are we searching for in the name of sense of meaningfulness? That which gives us a sense of security. Today we have come down to understand that artha means rokda. Rokda is money. But artha is all that which gives us sense of security. Some find that security in stocks. I don't know how they get a sense of security in stocks, but they find sense of security in stocks. In the earlier days also, in the ancient days, they were also into stocks, but they were into life stocks. Nobody would ask them, how much land you have, how many cows, how much, that is considered as the wealth. Now, when you look at the kings and their stories and description, like when Tulsidas ji or Valmiki ji describes about Ramji's wedding to Sita ji, Janak Maharaj was so happy at the end of the day after the marriage that to each person that had attended, as a return gift, for those who had participated in the Vedic mantras, the chanting, and the whole process of wedding, to all of them, according to their status, he gave each one of them few thousands of cows. ऐसा नहीं कि एक एक पकड़ा दिया, नहीं, few thousands of cows. And how is the description of those cows? Very healthy, robust, beaming forth with health, along with their calves. Okay. That itself, you are raising your eyes. I have yet to describe how those cows were. Their horns were decked with gold and what stones are they called? Precious stones. The calves were also decked with gold. The cows had manimala, the gold in form of the beads, and that was strung all over in a beautiful design. Such decked thousands of cows, each one was given. That was considered as wealth, security, Artha. And Adi Shankaracharya ji puts it very beautifully. He says, whatever we think that can give us sense of security is actually that which becomes our sense of insecurity. Artham anartham bhavaya nityam. Nasti tataha sukha leshaha satyam. This comes in Bhaja Govindam. Artham, anartham. We have to unearth the meaning of Artha as anartha. I mixed up 2-3 languages here. We have to discover that Artha, wealth, cannot give us that sense of security. But that is where we see that security. So anything that which gives us that sense of security can be called as Artha, meaningfulness. So in this Nītiśataka, we see that Bhartrhari, Raja Bhartrhari, he is the one who focuses on this Dharma and Artha. And there are in about 120 or 110 shlokas, there are too many thoughts that are often repeated, too many concepts that are taken up that are often repeated. And it is not like systematically organized, like topic wise. So what I will be putting an effort in as many days as it takes, that I would like to cover this under few topics. So the first topic that I would love to look in is, I would call it as the Dharma Vivarana, the understanding of Dharma as application in our lives. Now, I'm not talking from the highest standpoint. I'm talking from the standpoint of Vyavahara, Dharma, as it can be applied in our day-to-day life. Dharma Nirnaya or Samanya Dharma Nirnaya. Very, very common day-to-day. The second topic that I would focus on is who or how can we identify and define as a sadhu purusha, a sajjana. Why? So that the understanding of an ideal person can stand as an inspiration for us to work our way to that standard. Like how in second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked, Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava. To him, Bhagavan Krishna describes a very beautiful, elaborate Sthita prajna lakshana. That individual who has his buddhi in samya sthiti, in equipoise. How does that person act, behave, and interact? That description is given in those last 18 shlokas. So similarly, he focuses on those sadhu lakshana or sajjana lakshana. Second topic. What is the first topic? Dharma vivarana. Second, sadhu lakshana or sajjana lakshana. Now, once the board is, the whiteboard is nicely, cleanly, sparkling clean, white, sadhu lakshana, right? On that backdrop, when you project, so you take a white chalk on a whiteboard, it will not be seen. If you are using a white chalk, then you need a blackboard. If you are having a black marker, then you need a white board. So here, first we will go through the understanding of the sadhu lakshana, sajjana lakshana. Now with that backdrop, we will see moodha lakshana. Moodha lakshana, who or when can I understand that I am slipping away? Okay, while I am telling this, let me caution. It is not for you to gang up on the rest of them around you to decide and say, "Arey, ye to mood hai. This fellow is moodha." Actually, the entire family is moodha. No, it is not for us to brand the world around us, but to evaluate one's own self. Moodha lakshana. Bhartrhari seems to very vehemently propose and on the vidhi. Vidhi means fate, God's will. It has to be understood in proper context. The thought presentation is so powerful that after listening to that, many of us will become confused. Many of us will become confused and say that I think, Bhartrhari is right. There is no purushartha. There is no self-will, free will. Jo hoga, so hoga. Whatever happens will happen. Let it happen. May it happen. All is well. God ichha, Hari ichha. A very dangerous forum. Not that he is saying that there is no purushartha. There is no free will. There is free will. And he also talks about that. So therefore, after we talk about the vidhi, which is the God's will or fate, then we'll talk about purushartha nirnaya. So what are the 5 topics? Dharma vivarana, sajjana lakshana or sadhu lakshana. Third one is moodha lakshana. Fourth, vidhi or God's will. Fifth one is called purushartha. Purushartha is the free will. And how purushartha is free will. And how well we can apply that free will. Now before all that, just as I said, that Bhartrhari does not seem just to be a poet, because his very opening of Nītiśatakaṃ, he starts with a bang. And the way he starts, it shows that he is not just a poet, but also a Vedantin. And he is also someone, with the clarity with which he is describing it, he is also someone who is not just saying it because he has read in the scriptures, but he is stating it from his own state of experience. So we see that profoundness in him right in the beginning. And he dedicates that beginning as his um, Mangalacharana, dedication to the highest. Like in Tattva Bodha, we saw what is the Mangalacharana? Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Vidhiyate. Vivek Chudamani. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tama Gocharam Govindam Paramahanandam. So similarly, here the Mangalacharana, Bhartrhari, Raja Bhartrhari, he dedicates it to the highest altar, to that Paramatma, Parabrahma Tattva. And if you are looking at the first shloka, you will be seeing that whole thing, that first sentence of the shloka is one word. So we'll try to break it and read it. So I'll chant, you repeat after me. Dik kaladyanavachinna dyanavachinna ananta chinmatra murtaye svanubhutyeka svanubhutyeka namaya Namashantāya tejase Svanubhutyeka namaya Namashantāya tejase. Namaha. Namaha, salutations. Salutations to who? Dikkaladyanavacchinnananta chinmatra murtaye. What exactly are you saying there? It says Chinmatra Murtaye. Who is he offering his salutations to? To that Chinmatra, Chit Chaitanyam. Chitta means different. Chit means Chaitanyam. Matra means filled with or that alone. Meaning pure Chaitanya. Chaitanya means consciousness. Murtaye, Murtaye, the very embodiment of pure consciousness, unto who I am offering salutations. Chinmatra Murtaye. How is this Chinmatra Murtaye? Ananta Chinmatra Murtaye. Ananta, that which can never be shackled, that which can never come to an end, that which can never be broken. Such unbreakable, unlimited Chinmatra Murtaye. With what confidence are you saying that it is so? He says, Dik Kala Adi Anavachinna. Anavachinna. Avachinna means that which can be conditioned. That which can be conditioned. Conditioned by what? This is dik kala vastu. Here it says dik kaladya kaladi anavadya. Kaladi means etc. So space, dik, kala, time, adi, vastu. That which is not limited by desha kala vastu parimana. Desha kala vastu parimana, that which is not limited by it, such chaitanya swarupa is called chinmatra. Chinmatra, pure consciousness. There is no conditioning of spatial limitation. There is no conditioning of time as a limitation. There is no conditioning of vastu as a limitation. Avachinna, anavachinna. Avachinna means limited, conditioned. Anavachinna, that which cannot be conditioned by. Conditioned by desha kala vastu. Vastu means anything that can be owned. Property, wealth, whatever, vastu. Now, that which defines that desha kala vastu, that definition itself will become its own paricheda. Now, when I say this vastu, what is this vastu? A watch, a wristwatch, right? The moment I say it is a watch, a wristwatch, the very description of it has limited it from not being a phone, not being a bottle, not being a pen. Because when you define it that this is this vastu, then it is not this vastu. So that very definition becomes its own limitation. Desha, I mean, there can be so many other logics that can be gone into, but I'm just limiting to that which defines that desha kala vastu. That definition itself will become the limitation for it to be a vulnerability. Where are you right now? In this hall called Chitrakoot. Meaning what? The moment you say Chitrakoot, you are not everywhere else, at least physically. Right? At least physically, you are not anywhere else. I mean, I don't know if you have siddhis and you are in multiple places. Good for you. Teach me also. So that I can spread myself across 3 sessions, I mean 3 different centers. We know if I am here, I am not elsewhere. That very definition, that this place, which means not the other places ever. This time, which means it doesn't include the all other times. So, desha kala vastu vishesha parimana. That parimana is another beautiful word. Parimana means a measure, an understandable measure. The moment you measure it, that measurement in itself will become its limitation. Yes, its definition, but its very definition limits it. Okay, this is beaten up enough. Now, what are you trying to say? That which I am worshipping, that which I am offering my salutations unto, is anavachinnam. Anavachinnam is not limited, conditioned by time, space, or Vastu Swarupa. We in fact say that this Brahman, what is this Brahman, this Paramatma? That which cannot be defined by any pramana. Pramana means what? Pramana means a means to know, a means of measure, a means to measure and know. Am I there right in front of you? How do you know? Because I can see. Pratyaksha pramana. Aksha means through my own sense perception. For that, I don't need any kind of shastra. I don't need any other kind of authority to prove, because it is seen, it is experienced. But many a times, that which I see may not be enough for me to understand that which I see and what I can make sense out of it. So then I have to start using the next layer, which is called inference or anumana pramana. Inference. I slept through the night, I woke up early morning, and I saw that my newspaper got wet. I got annoyed. Is it because of my sprinkler system? Then I further went out and I saw it is not just my driveway which is wet, it is all others' driveways are also wet and their newspaper also is wet. So I'm happy I come back. That this is definitely not the sprinkler system or the newspaper fellow who threw this here and it got wet, but it is the rains. How did you know it was the rains? Whenever rain falls, there is wetness on the floor. And it is not just limited, sometimes it is freaky. I was driving on 75, coming from north down to Saket. And on that side, where it was driving from north to south, it was sun. On the other side, from south to north, it was raining. It was as though somebody was standing up there and holding the hose and keeping a barrier, and the rain was falling only on this side. And the other side, there was no rain. Have you ever seen such? It's a freak show. Huh. Like the actor and the actress are drenched and they are singing, and the backdrop people are walking. There is no. So maybe they are caught in such kind of rain. So whenever I have seen the floor uniformly wet all across, then I decide it is. But not all that which I infer can be true either. See, whenever there is smoke, there has to be fire. I have to be careful. I stopped asking that question to the high schoolers. So they say wherever there is smoke, they say they have a cigarette. But even that cigarette is possible because it has fire in there. It got some fire in there. And that is when it can bring out the smoke. So I saw on the farthest mountains that there was this smoke rising. And I hit the alarm saying, boy, the forest is on fire. Especially if you have a El Nino season and you are in California, it's a high possibility that there are forest fires. And somebody experienced comes and says, dude, early in the morning, it is not the forest fire, it could be fog. And if you're living in LA, then it is smoke plus fog, therefore it is smog. Competing with Delhi and Beijing. Because that is, they have higher percentage of smogification. So it is not fire, but it could be just the fog that is lifting away because of the sun rising in the horizon. But here, this Paramatma Swarupa cannot be proven by any kind of pramana. Why? Why can it not be proven by any pramana? Because the moment it is proven by any pramana, that pramana itself becomes its limitation. Gurudev puts it very beautifully. He says, defining God is defiling God. The moment you say God is this, that becomes a limitation for that so-called defined aspect of God. So, aprameya, that which cannot be had through any kind of pramana. It is too much now. You say that it is not limited by desha kala vastu, and you say it cannot be by pratyaksha or anumana. Then what is the means? Don't worry. It is swa anubhuti ekanamaya. It is self-evident in its own being. In its own essence, it is self-evident. You don't require someone else or something else or somewhere else for it to illuminate or provide a scope for it to be understood. It is self-evident. Swata siddha swarupena. When there is sun, I don't need the laser pointer to say or something else to say that which my laser is pointing is called sun. You don't need to. That which is the brightest because of who you are able to see everything else, that is called sun. Right? Now, last point on that is, before that sun can illumine anything else, what is it illumining first? Its own being. जब दिया जलाते हो, दिया के प्रकाश से बाकी सब प्रकाशित होता जरूर है, पर उससे पहले अपने आप को प्रकाशित करता है. That which illumines itself and its presence before it can even illumine anything else. It doesn't require any other proof of evidence to say that it exists. Swa anubhuti ekanamaya shantaya tejase. How do you say that it is swata siddha? Because its very nature is tejas. Tejas, conscious illumination. But how can my intellect understand? It does not require this limited intellect's authentication to say it exists. And this is the hardest point to get across as a seeker, to understand that it is not that this Chaitanya Swarupa has to be ascertained by the intellect, but we keep going around in circles to ascertain it through the intellect, because we have not known anything else as an experience or conditioning to go without being ascertained by the intellect. In fact, we say that which ascertains the very existence of your intellect, that is called Atma Chaitanya. Why? It is of the nature of Tejase, self illumination, Swatasiddha, and it illumines. And knowing, being that Atma Swarupa, it brings in Shanti. Now, Shanti can also become a vulnerability. Why? Anybody making noise, I can get irritated. And there will be people, the moment you say Shanti, they will be there to test you. And they are usually in the format of the cutest things called our own children. They are there to test everything that which you put a limit on. So, kids, what is the other name of them? Limit testers. You put a limit and they'll keep testing it. How far can I push it? Shanti. As soon as you say that, that is when they'll have all questions. Even if they are mature enough to sit quiet, at the moment they'll start making this sound. Just at that point when you said Shanti, that Shanti can become its own vulnerability because it can be shattered. Now, the Shanti that is being mentioned here is not a platform that can be disturbed or distracted because of noise, but that which supports every sound and its expression to be experienced. That is called Shanti. That platform, see, whenever I'm making a sound, there is silence. From that silence, this sound is originating. And where does it go back into? So, what is the substratum? It is this conscious, profound silence on which the sounds dance. Right? It is this profound silence, conscious silence, on which the sounds are dancing. Without that platform, there cannot be sound experienced. That is being called here, that substratum is being referred to here as Shantaya Tejase. So, to that Brahman who is not conditioned or limited by any of the Deshakala Vastu, is Chinmatra Swarupa, pure consciousness, embodiment of pure consciousness, and it is self revealing because it is of the nature of illumination and it is of the nature of substratum, which is this conscious quietude, silence. To that platform, salutations. And every time I see this Namaha, it's so profound. Namaha, when you say that, it is a word and it is a sentence also. Without any karta, karma indicated. Because what is important is the act and unto who that act is being offered. Who is offering it is not important. I, the individuality who is to offer it, is not important. Otherwise, the sentence should have been Aham Shanta Tejase Namaskaromi. Aham and Karomi. Karta and Karma are indicated. Here both are dropped. Just the act is mentioned. Namaha. Salutations. That is called a true salutation, true namaskara, when the individuality is completely wiped clean. That is called true namaskara. Namaha. Namaha meaning that which usually is the functional expression is manaha. How do I interact? What is my operating system to interact with the outside world? Is manaha. But that manaha has now been turned inside out. So manaha became namaha. That is when the U-turn happens, right? That the mind or the internal equipment turns towards its own source. Manaha becomes namaha. When that U-turn happens, and that individuality who is identified with this mind and the equipment, that identification is dropped, the act still remains. Namaha, salutations are being offered. It is not the individual who is any more important. See, our whole effort in life is this individuality and how well can this individuality be recognized. We will do anything and everything to get that little pat of recognition. Sometimes we wear clothes, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we put on, sometimes we take off. And you see the world record book, what is it called? Guinness Book of World Record. Have you ever read through it? When you're feeling really low, okay, buy that book and flip through the pages. It gives me, I literally fall off the chair and roll. Like mahan murkhataएं. One fellow is on that Guinness record because he has stuffed his mouth with about 100 plus cigarettes and he is smoking them. जीना है मरना है. And that is a world record. For 40 long years, nails grown. For 40 long years, you have grown nails. मतलब बाकी जिंदगी में कुछ किया ही नहीं. You have done absolutely nothing else in life other than growing these stupid nails. Stop paying attention. And that is what is the frustration, right? Many times when you want to go out for a party or somewhere, and you have put on new clothes or new not instrument ornaments, new ornaments, and then you come out and the other half says ha chalo, and you are like, unbelievable. Yo, अरे देखा हुआ चेहरा है, चल बैठ. The kind of disappointment and huffing and puffing, and why I put in so much of effort, you don't even 2 seconds of acknowledgement. बेचैनी. I put so much of effort into this project. And my boss even presented it to his boss. But he didn't have the courtesy to even tell me thanks. It can be applied in so many different angles. Now, here is a beautiful expression where he says, that unto who it is being offered, that Paramatma is the most important. Me surrendering this whole individuality conglomerate is important. The act is important. And when does that act really find its sanctity? When this individuality is completely nullified. Therefore, he says, Kevalam Namaha. Quickly, let me go to the second shloka. The second shloka is kind of sort of funny, which actually tells us the story which I just narrated to you all. He says, Yam chintayami satatam mai sa virakta sapyanyam icchanti janam sa janonyasaktaha asmat krite cha parishusyati kachidanya dhiktam cha tam cha madanam cha imam cha mam cha. Yam chintayami satatam. Chintayami, that about who I am incessantly thinking about. ख्वाबों में तू, ख्यालों में तू, तू ही तू, तू ही तू. I'm mixing up a lot of songs here, okay? Yam chintayami, about that who I am constantly thinking out of so much of love. Mai sa virakta. She is completely having dispassion towards me, meaning disinterested in me. Sa virakta. Sa api anyam icchanti. How is she? Sa api anyam ichhati. And that fellow who she is liking, saha janaha anya asaktaha. That fellow is attracted to someone else. He says, asmat krite. He says, why? In all this, we say, there is parishusyati kachidanya. That which we call as love, it is completely like dried up. There is nothing called, it is only seeking attention kind of a syndrome. There is no love, there is no giving, there is no being there. It is his bitter experience that he has gone through. Dhiktam cha, tam cha, madanam cha, imam cha, mam cha. He says, all these following are dhik. Dhik is like, foolish of myself, foolish of her, foolish of him, foolish of Madana. Madana is Kamadeva himself. Because all of this is happening only in the wrong anticipation. And this whole cycle, it's a funny cycle that comes to an end, wherein the fruit that he gave to his beloved, and it went like 4 rounds to finally come back to him. And he looks at that fruit and he says, I think I am the one who has to be immortal. And that is the day he gets his vairagya. So we will see the next shloka tomorrow. tomorrow we will look into the first one I said, Dharma Vivarana. So the Dharma Vivarana we will see tomorrow from the 19th shloka. That will be the first shloka to discuss. So that we will see Manyana. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om